Hey everyone, and welcome to Monday's edition of Stream On. I'm Jim Williams, your host, and we have a lot of ground to cover today, and I hope that you guys are ready to rock and roll. We got Justin is in the house already. Justin, how you doing? Justin's question is, it seems as if Stanford and Cal are trying to exhaust all options for the Big Ten and the ACC. They are only one vote away from the ACC invite. More clarity this week on the ACC. Yeah, I think a lot of things are going there. Excuse me. Hey, good morning, Buckshot Kid. Good to see you. Justin, I think the key element here with the ACC is what happens tomorrow, because that's the day that you can exit the ACC if you wish. If you want to buy yourself out of it. Now, that would, Florida State, we know, is going to challenge that. Now, the whole thing depends on, can Florida State actually physically get themselves out of there? And where, by the way, are they going to go? Because right at the moment, there has been no invitations. So I think that what we're seeing here is if this were a month ago, right, and it was Stanford, Cal, and the other 7, I guess it would be, because it would have been 9. I think they would have onboarded that. I don't think at this point in time, even though they're one vote away, the trend is going away from that. Okay, so they may be one vote away over the weekend, but they may not. If FSU stays, then there's the idea of who's going to pay for Stanford and Cal to join the conference. And I think that that right now, I do think that's a problem. I don't think the Big Ten, they've tapped out. They tapped out with adding Washington and Oregon. I don't think they've got any more interest in adding Stanford and Cal at this time. So my guess is, and that's just what it is, we'll find out more of this tomorrow, but I do think the clarity is going to come this week, as you say, because let's see what happens to Florida State tomorrow. And there's just, going the ACC going to Stanford and Cal, or having Stanford and Cal belong in your conference, is not as appealing because they just don't bring the kind of cash that you would, you would hope they would. And so I think that even though they're only a vote away, I think they might be, and I think the trend is getting there, that maybe the value of Stanford and Cal coming on board the ACC might not be enough for everybody and their grandmother to have to pick up and go out to Palo Alto and to and to Berkeley to play games out there. But you're absolutely right about the clarity aspect. We should know certainly within the next 48 to 72 hours whether there's any growing interest in that. Now, I know a lot of people were talking about the push from Notre Dame. The push from Notre Dame was really not that much of a push. It was more of a wouldn't it be nice to have them kind of thing, because again, Notre Dame has a vote, but as far as the sway they have, it's definitely, we don't know how much sway they have at this point in time. So absolutely 100%, we'll have to see what goes there. Good morning, Buckshot. Good to see you in the house. Anybody got any more questions with that? That's okay. Let's take a quick look. Yeah, hey, how's it going? We got how are things trending for the ACC? Does it look like some members will be poached, or is a merger still an option? Okay, that's a good question, and I think that let's go with the first part first, and that would be the ACC. There's probably legitimately, I'll say 8 teams that the PAC would feel, and again, the PAC's being driven by Stanford, so there's probably 8 teams that, and it would be SMU, because it's SMU, and they're willing to pay, will take a very small portion. Then you've got Rice, you've got Tulane, you've got South Florida, you probably got Memphis, you probably got Navy, Temple, Tulsa. Those schools would be attractive to the to Stanford and to the PAC because, excuse me, the key is they want to go to areas where there's research and there's potential potential money. Frankly, I mean, they could go there, they could entertain, they could begin to schmooze the concept, and also join up with universities that have great research departments. And frankly, they're in big cities, and that would make it easier for them to be part of it. So does it look like there's some? And yeah, there's probably a couple, 2, 3 in the Mountain West that would be of interest to them. Now, here's the problem. The problem is that there's buyouts which require 28 months of acknowledged. So let's say, just for the sake of argument, Tulane, SMU, those schools that I mentioned decide to leave the conference. Well, then you're going to have to, buy your way out, which is a matter. The money is not really, in some cases, a factor. In the AAC, it's not. What it is the 28 months. Now, can you negotiate the 28 months down? Probably not. It's maybe a little bit, but they've got a 2-year. They, meaning the Pac-4, have a 2-year window where they can restock. So they would still be a conference, even though there's only 4 teams out there at this point in time. So it's possible that happens. Now, the other part, the merger aspect. The merger aspect becomes interesting because that really would require no buyouts. It would simply require the 4 schools of the PAC and the 14 schools of the American agreeing upon a grant of rights that would, in essence, start a new conference. Not necessarily start it, but just rename the PAC, or just keep the PAC, whatever, because they are the group of 5 power conference. So that doesn't go away. You can't take that away at this time. So I would, Oliver Luck, Michael Resco know each other well. They've known each other when they were back in the Big East together. I would think that that's going to get every consideration. There'll be a lot of consideration for a merger of some sort. And no teams are going to leave, just for that, in case people want to know. Follow-up question. With Stanford driving the boat, are there decisions slow moving with the president stepping down? I think that the president being there, Stanford, the president being on board is important, but again, Stanford, like most universities, have an outside, the athletic department would report to the president's office. If you had an interim president, or if you have a chancellor, if you have any number of people who run the show, obviously someone is running the conference, where somebody's running the university while this happens. So let's make sure that we understand that Stanford is not like without someone who could make that decision. And so at that point in time, Stanford, does it complicate issues? Maybe not. I don't think it will, because they really have to make this decision, in a relatively short notice. I would think within the next month, maybe 2 months at the most. So that's where we're going with that. So yeah, Stanford, without the president, I don't think that would slow it down. Is it going to make it a little more complicated? Probably, but not keeping them from making a decision. What do we got? Ben, hey Ben, what does a university need to be in the same athletic conference than academic research purposes? It feels like that was really important to realignment Stanford Big Ten. It is, and let me explain why. Okay, a lot of people are saying, well, don't they care about athletics? Well, they do. They do care about it. Now, here's the thing, okay? Here's why. Obviously, television and football drives the boat, right? Drives the money. However, what's overlooked in the Olympic sports, which Stanford does, nobody does better in or has won more than Stanford in the Olympic sports. Olympic sports are limited in the number of scholarships you can give. Okay, so let's say baseball. You have a baseball team or a softball team. You are allowed to give out, let's say it's no more than maybe a dozen. So it's either 10 to 12. Well, it takes more than 10 to 12 people to play on a baseball team. So what happens is you get a number of truly student athletes who are paying their own way to play on the team. So in Olympic sports, because they're limited in scholarships, you actually have athletes that are participating in sports. And from a standpoint of the university, you're getting kids to play and pay their own way to school. So this fantasy that Olympic sports does not make college any money is silly. It does. It makes the college money. Does it make it as much as football or basketball? No, but it pays for itself. And, that's why Stanford has realized, and by the way, because most of those kids, you're not going to have pro swimmers and pro, beach volleyball players, or you might, a couple, but you get my idea. The whole concept of going through the Olympic sports is that these kids are going to graduate from school, and they're going to come back and they're going to be very, psyched about the possibility of playing, of being alumni who's going to support that program. So they're going to support if they were on the swimming team, they'll support the swimming team. If they're on the baseball team, they support that. So whatever it is, the Olympic sports, the lie out there, the big lie is that they don't make any money, which is not true. They do make money. Do they make football money? No, nobody makes football money. But they do make money for the college. So there you go. Let's see what we got here. My bias and alum status at Fresno State is mainly impacting judgment. Can you please, from a perspective, in case for excluded? I think Fresno State wouldn't be a bad add to the pack. I mean, I don't think that at all, Brendan. I think it'd be a good one. I think the key is, I think the key for Fresno, it's in Central California. It's a good school. It's part of the California. It's not the same California system as Cal Berkeley, but it's part of the state system. I think in the past there was a hesitation to pull the thing on Fresno because of the thought that, okay, well, we've got four, back when they had USC and UCLA, we have 4 schools in the state of California. Why do we need more? So that might have played against it. I don't think Fresno State would be a bad add at all to the new pack. If that were, I would imagine, San Diego State, Fresno, Boise, UNLV. I mean, there's 4. I mean, you go to the mountain, and those are the states closest to what we now know is the 4 teams of the pack. I think there's a lot of value to take a look at there. So I wouldn't be so hesitant in my mind. And I think Oliver Luck, because Oliver Luck came from West Virginia, and he's going to take a different look at these schools than maybe Stanford or some of the others might have done in the past. So I wouldn't rule out the opportunity for Fresno to get in there. Is it going to be I don't know what the criteria is at this point in time for it, but I do believe that with a guy like Oliver Luck in charge, that you're going to get plenty of of consideration because Oliver Luck understands being with a West Virginia where people were, frankly, unfairly looked at West Virginia with, with kind of a kind of a they don't belong here attitude, which is silly. And so I would definitely say that you're going to want to have if you're going to get, I'll tell you what, with Oliver Luck, Fresno State's going to get the fairest look at Pac-12 or Pac-4 of anybody who's ever been involved. So I think if that's what we're looking for, which is that's all we're asking anybody to look for, is the opportunity to do that. So I think you're going to get it from Oliver. He's a good dude. So let's see what we got here coming up. Let's see. Okay, Buckshot. Could you see the Ivy League expanding into Canada just to stick into Stanford? You know what? I don't think the Ivy League pays attention to Cal and Stanford. They're fine. They're fine. They're not. They don't care anything about Cal and Stanford. I think the Ivy League is just basically looking out there and kind of just laughing at it and saying, heck, who cares from that standpoint? But that's funny. That's a good one, Buckshot. I appreciate that one. You're welcome. Anytime. Come back often. Hey, guys, do me a favor. Hit the bell, like us, subscribe, and comment in the comments below. If you want to come back later and you've got something you want to ask, you can comment below and come and see. So subscribe, hit the button, and like us. We like to do this. We're going to do it every day, Monday through Friday. So please subscribe, hit the bell, and like us. Okay, cool. All right. What about Sunbelt schools to the Pac? Georgia State, App State. Good question. I think Georgia State plays in Atlanta. That might be interesting. I would think, and I'm going to just put it this way, okay, Kenneth, if the ACC loses schools, I know the ACC knows Appalachian State and Georgia State probably as well as anybody. My best guess would be that if a Power 5 conference is in the cards for Georgia State and Appalachian State, that it's going to come from the ACC, because if they lose, say, Georgia Tech, or if they lose a Carolina school, then Georgia State and App State certainly would be good fills for that. So I wouldn't look for the Pac to do it, because I just think that might be a step too far from travel and all the other stuff that goes into it. But I certainly wouldn't discount what's going on in a new and improved ACC down the line, because a lot of this stuff is going to be down the line, guys. So be patient. I do think that those two Sunbelt schools have got some potential. Okay, all right, cool. Let's see. What do we got here? Is it safe to assume that South Canford played a role in the demise of the Pac? Believe that they were worth more than they really were, but the ups and downs. Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. I think you're absolutely right. I think that that Stanford and Cal probably balked at the $32 million that they were offered by ESPN and Fox, which ended up going to the Big 12. And so, yeah, I don't think there's any question Stanford and Cal, probably Oregon and Washington, was guilty of that as well. I think overvaluing themselves was, possibly one of their major downfalls. And certainly, it wasn't the one factor. I mean, there's a bunch of factors as to what caused it, but did that play a role in it? Sure. You're 100% right. I agree with that. What are the downsides for the schools in the AAC under a Cal Stanford leadership? Basically, that Stanford would be the the driving force in there. Now, is that a bad thing? You know, I don't know that it would be if a newly constructed PAC were involved. I don't know that that's a bad thing at all. But what I would say is that it's likely to have a lot more. They're going to have schools there that they value academics and athletics in a way that is not counted on wins and losses, national championships or not national championships. So I think that's probably going to be something that we're going to have to look at, and we'll go from there. But yeah, 100% that it's going to be for the schools. The downsides for the schools in the AAC is just a matter of perception, probably. But if I'm an AAC school and I'm in and they merge with the PAC, I'm not. It's cool. I don't care. That just means more money, and I'll get it into a Power 5 conference. So the downside is that you're dealing with Stanford, which may dictate what their schedule is. Cal to a lesser extent, but certainly remember that there would also be Washington State, Oregon State. Those are good programs that I think are very much like many of the schools in the AAC. So I wouldn't be too upset about that if I were you. I would 100% think that you want to, let's be, for me as a USF rep, I'd be more than happy to, have Stanford look down at me if I can still be in Power 5 conference. So I think that the upside is more than the downside, if that makes any sense, in being there. So, it's a good question though. Very good question. All right, what do we got? We got Jeffrey. What do you got, Jeffrey? What is the timing of the next move? Is there any option for a three-way merger? Look, I wouldn't rule that out. Okay, I wouldn't rule that out. If you think about it, you'd have a national conference, and the American would be a great name just to keep it, put it at that. There's only 4 schools in the PAC. The AAC Mountain West. I've long thought that the AAC and the Mountains should definitely have merged together because it just makes sense. Would it be a massive conference? Yeah, absolutely. But it would be a conference that would, span 5 time zones because you'd add Hawaii into that. And so it would definitely be worth looking into. And so is it on the table? I don't know that it is, but it should be at least thought about. Because what would happen in that case, you would, I don't know that you would shed schools because that really takes things into a grant of rights issues. But I would say that even if it was, 32 teams, like you could set it up like the NFL, it would work to avoid the exit fees, which that you're asking about. So it would be interesting. And I think it wouldn't be a bad idea, Jeffrey. I really wouldn't, because think of all of the buzz you could get. Like you said, you could set it up like in the NFL where you have, East, Central, North, and West, and even Mountain in this case. So you could set it up to make it work. Whether they could get the amount of money for a TV contract, that would be interesting. But at the end of the day, why not, right? I mean, right now they only have 4 schools, so why not consider how that could be done? And like you said, that way nobody has to worry about exit fees. So good thought. Mickey, what you got? Mickey in Orlando. How you doing, Mickey? Do you think the PAC leadership might be interested in adding USF because they are actually considered University of San Francisco, not California? They would, remember you're talking to a USF grad here, so that's Mickey. I think that I think the PAC would definitely take a look at USF, and I'm talking about South Florida, not San Francisco. San Francisco doesn't have a football team. No, actually, they just got into Division I football this year, I think. So I do believe that they would be considered because of AAU status. As I said before, wins and losses is not necessarily the key element here, and I think that South Florida's going to rebound from that. Just for the record, Mickey, I was a booster of Central Florida getting into the Big 12, and I was happy for them when they got there. So we'll see. I do think that South Florida would be would they get there? I don't know, but I do believe if you take South Florida, if you take Rice, if you take Tulane, if you had SMU, I think those are some of the schools that are going to get the most view from the pack because of their relationships to research and the fact that they're in big cities. So absolutely. And as for San Francisco, given the fact that they already have two schools in the San Francisco Bay Area, I don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, that was a fun question. Thanks, Mikey. Okay, blah, blah. One of my favorite names. Can you expand more on UAB? I think a lot of people are missing a great academic. You're right. They are a good academic school in research. And college football for sure. I mean, Birmingham is a good place. I wouldn't, as I said before, you've got, if Oliver Luck is there, Oliver Luck is someone who understands sports in a way that is, and understands brands that the Pac may not even be aware of. And UAB is one of them. And I do think that will they get in? I don't know. I don't know any of these schools, how that works from a standpoint of, what they're, the seriousness of how many schools does the Pac want to add. But I do believe that Birmingham is a good quality university, and I would 100% think that certainly they're deserving of consideration, whether they get it or not. As I said, with Oliver Luck there, and as I said, Oliver was at West Virginia. A lot of people look down on West Virginia's academics, which was unfair, and so I don't think that Oliver Luck. And by the way, remember that Oliver Luck was involved in 2 professional sports leagues, which had teams in Birmingham. So if anybody knows Birmingham, you got one guy out at the Pac-4 headquarters now in Oliver Luck who does understand the passion for football that is Birmingham. Okay, so blah blah. We'll see how it plays out, but I would say to anyone who underestimates the value of UAB, they do so at their own peril, because that's just not it. It would be foolish not to at least consider them, because I agree that they're doing research. Schools like UAB, Tulane, South Florida Rice. These are schools that are on the rise. They're like growth stocks, right? So if you're going to invest in growth stocks, why not invest in growth stocks that will pay dividends down the line? And so UAB may not necessarily tick all the boxes right today, but if you're seeing that they're growing in the right areas, why not, right? So as I said, let's see how it plays out. But Oliver Luck, I think that's probably the biggest advantage you have, is that he's going to understand the value of a UAB where others may not. So anyway, we'll see. Stay with us, and any questions, be happy to take it. Justin, what you got for us here? I've seen some suggest that the Big 12 is going to pick apart the ACC once Clemson. I don't see it that way. I don't. The ACC. Right now the Big 12's on a high, and they earned that. They earned the high. But the ACC had, if it were not for that horrific grant of rights that they negotiated, thank you, John Swofford, for that. I think that the ACC might have well been in a better position than they are today. So I think that's kind of something we're going to have to take a look at. But at the end of the day, I don't think, and right now we don't know where Clemson and FSU would be leading to. So if it was just Clemson and FSU, which are two, stellar brands, there's any question about that. If they were to leave, my guess is the ACC would backfill and take on. I don't think the first concept of teams in the conference would be to bolt to the Big 12. That's my point. I think what they would likely do is see what is out there that might be helpful to them and backfill that, because there's still going to be some good brands left there. So before they're added to the Big 12, I think the ACC, now, could they end up having schools leave and go to the Big 12? Sure, that's possible. But I don't think that the Big 12 is going to pick them apart like some of the Big 12 fan base does. I think that the ACC has plenty of juice from that standpoint, and they may, they're certainly going to fight back. It's not going to be, you're not going to just walk in and take schools. And I do believe that ESPN would benefit from, as you put it, and I agree, a viable ACC. So they can't afford, ESPN needs the Atlantic Coast Conference to survive. I mean, that's a fact. They need it to survive. So I can assure you that the Big 12 picking them apart, no, that's not going to happen. What is there going to be some teams that might be swayed to go to the Big 12? Maybe. But again, I think it's far too important to the ACC to keep things, as they are, or as I say, backfill and make it work, than it is to allow them to go. Because the Big 12 is something where the football aspect of the Big 12 is really Fox. ACC has that, in the basketball, which is at the moment the most valuable asset that the ACC has, would go to Fox, and that is not going to something that the ACC is going to want to have happen. The ACC is invested in, the ESPN is invested in the ACC network, and frankly, the ACC, I reported this numerous times, the ACC has always, they were one of the first to go out and jump after the PAC. They wanted to do a merger with the PAC. They wanted to do a partnership with the PAC. And now we see that Stanford and Cal want to come to the ACC. I do believe they did continue to pursue that up to the final moment, but it didn't bear fruit. But in hindsight, when somebody does the book on what happened to the implosion of the Big 12, the Pac-12, that they're going to find out that a relationship with the ACC might very well have been one of the things that would have kept things alive out there. So, you do what you got to do, right? But I 100% agree with you that having a viable ACC is critical to ESPN. They can't. They're not going to let that go. And right now, it's Fox and ESPN that run the show. Now that may be, in 10 years from now, that may be Apple, and it may be Amazon, and it may be Google, YouTube. It could be any number of them. But right now, no, I think they got to keep that. So we'll see how that continues to play out. But I think, Justin, you bring a very good question there in the viability aspect. Let's see what we got here. Did we get here? Let's see what we got. Is Boise State left out of this merger expansion, the AAC and the Pac-4? I'm nervous to get rough. Jacob, hang on a second. Let me ask you. I'll get to you in a minute, Coach. I got something skipped here on me. There we go. I'm just trying to see where we are. We're trying to. Did we get Justin? Okay. Let me run down this for you. Jacob, I'll be right back to you. All right. Kenneth has similarity. You think ECU will get a fair shake in the AAC Pac-4 negotiations? I don't see why not. It's football school loyalty, ACC, good tradition, great attendance, 100%. I mean, my only part of ECU is getting there, but no, ECU has a fan base and a group of people that 100% love the school and support the school. And look, if the ACC were to, the AAC, we'll just call it the American, make it simple. If the American in the Pac were to deal in a merger, I don't think that would be a problem at all for East Carolina. I think they would be a loyal member. They'd be right there. So if I know it's funny. I've seen a lot of ECU people nervous. There's no reason to be nervous. Look, they're not going to. The one thing the Americans not going to do is cut football. Cut programs from any of that. So I would think that the ECU would be fine if they got to a merger aspect. Charlotte's grown 30 times. I don't want to see it. Yeah, look, Charlotte, 100%. That it'd be interesting. Seems as though Western schools don't like Charlotte. Can you explain? I don't know that they don't like it. I think that Charlotte's new to the American, and I'd go back to when Cornbread Maxwell played at Charlotte. So I know that Charlotte is a good university and has always had a passion for sports. So again, I hate to keep going back to Oliver Luck in this, but Oliver knows Charlotte. So again, this whole thing, guys, plays into what happens with a merger, right? Can you put together a partnership or a merger, which then allows schools like ECU and Charlotte, okay, to suddenly become on a national scale, larger than they have been in the past, and it shines a bigger light on it, and you get more TV time, and there's more people who are engaged in what's going on. So if I'm Charlotte or ECU, any of these schools, I don't worry about whether or not the Western schools that don't like me or not like me. I worry about what can be done by the conference to make sure that that I get my 15 minutes of fame, and I think that's what I can tell you this much. Mike Oresco, who runs the American, is a good guy. He's a wonderful commissioner, and he will make certain that Charlotte gets the light shined on him. So hang in there. We'll see how that goes, and we'll keep you posted. But absolutely, Charlotte's had a wonderful program, and I hope that they continue. Happy Monday, Wild Youth. Good to see you, buddy. Listening while working. Okay, well, that's what I'm doing. I'm listening and working at the same time too. Good to see you. All right. Coach Knowles, as a Temple fan and alum, maybe few during the merger, American, exciting. It just is an exciting thought. I have a niece that graduated from Temple, and I have a special place for Temple. Temple's a lovely school. It's a big city. It's in Philadelphia. That would definitely, I'm sure, excite the Pac, Stanford and Cal coming to Philly. That'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun. So hang in there, bud. Let me move my way down here. Boise State, that's where we were. Jacob, took me a while. Sorry, buddy. Coos' Corner, good morning, Coos. Good to see you in the house, buddy. Be with you guys in a minute. Is Boise State going to be left out of the merger expansion? I hope not. I do hope not, because Boise State is basically torched, along with Fresno State, has basically torched the Pac in the non-conference games. I mean, they've beaten up on them on a regular basis. I think they'd be foolish not to look at Boise. Now, if the merger with the AAC happens, does that mean that Mountain West schools can't be involved? No, it doesn't. And also, it doesn't mean that Oliver Luck at the end of the day, as a consultant, may say, you know what, as much as we like what's going on with the AAC, from a purely dollars and cents standpoint, it makes more sense if we would maybe merge with the Mountain and maybe poach a couple of 3 or 4 AAC teams. So there's a number of variables here. I would hope that Boise would get consideration, because you're right, they've been left out of any of the merger expansion conversations for a long time, and I don't think that's been fair, because it 100% is something that I believe they have proven year in and year out that they deserve. So let's hope that Boise gets some love here, because they certainly have shown that they deserve it. So I'm with you, Jacob. All right, Roberto Gonzalez, what's new with UConn? I still think that UConn's going to be in the Big 12. When? Good question at this point, but I do believe they're going to be in the Big 12. It may not be for a couple of years, but UConn is a favorite of the commissioner and Mr. Yormark. Had the 4 corner schools not made that jump, I think UConn would be there now. So had they not gotten those 4 schools from the Pacific Coast Conference, I do think UConn would be there. But unfortunately for UConn, they did. And maybe if even 2 of them would have done it, they might have added UConn. But I think Brett Yormark wants UConn. I know Brett Yormark wants UConn. So, a little more patience, Robert. I know it's tough because UConn has been through a lot, and that's for sure. But I do think if you hang in there, buddy, a couple years down the road, UConn will be part of. The Big 12 has to go east. They've gone way west, and they haven't made it easy on UCF or West Virginia from the standpoint of having to travel long ways. So they need some help, and I think that an eastern swing for the Big 12, for the next TV contract will probably be it. So hang in there, and don't worry too much. Things are swinging in your direction. So as I say, when you've got the commissioner in your corner, that's a pretty good person to have in your corner. Guys, don't forget, if you could, I greatly would appreciate you subscribing, hitting the bell, and liking us, because those are things that we need to have happen. Okay. Tell you what, we're going to get close. Any final questions? Because we're going to get out of here. We are going to be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Okay, 10 a.m. Eastern time, for more talk about everything. We'll talk about a couple things that of interest. One, on the streaming side, Apple seems to be doing very well with the MLS. That's working good for them. With Lionel Messi and the folks at Inter Miami just marching to a semifinal spot in the Leagues Cup. That's cool. As I think I mentioned to some of you on Max, which is of course what we all used to know as HBO Max. It's now just Max. And Max is going to have the MLB playoffs in October. And then the NBA and the NHL will also be streamed there as well. So that's going to be cool. And we're not that far away from ESPN's launch of college football, as well as CBS Sports Network and their launching of some college football. So plenty of college football coming down the line. We got NFL preseason, so all kinds of stuff being streamed and being able to be accessible. So I'll keep you posted on what's going on there. But for now, if we have one or two more questions from the class, we'll answer them. But otherwise, we want to get out of here for a Monday. But thanks to everybody who came by. Wow, good to see you, buddy. Coach Knowles, Jacob, Kuz, Roberto, and all the guys who came. We greatly appreciate it. A couple of last ones here. Kenneth, loyal AHCC, 214, great football program. I think I actually answered that question. So yeah, ECU is definitely something that Kenneth, you, Buckshot Kid, everybody, hang tight. ECU will get their moment in the sun. They deserve it, and we'll see. Okay, but it definitely is going to be there. So hang in there, guys. Look, it's been great. Come on back tomorrow. Subscribe, hit the bell, and if you remember something later that you didn't get a chance to answer, or I didn't get a chance to answer, by all means, leave a comment down there, and I promise to answer every one of them. And I think that we're going to have some fun here, gang. Okay, we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some guests. We're bringing on some guests, and we're going to bring in some people that that you can ask questions to, and we're going to have some fun. Okay, so for Monday, I want to thank you all for joining us, and we will be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time, and enjoy your day. You can also get this as a podcast later in the day. It'll drop and it'll be available on Apple Podcasts, on Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, on iTunes, on iHeartRadio, and basically anywhere, as the old saying goes, that you get your podcasts. You'll have a chance to listen to the show later, or you can come back here, as I said before, watch it and drop in some comments. All right. Well, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of fun doing this on a Monday through Friday basis. Have a great day. We will see you tomorrow. For the team here, I'm Jim Williams saying so long, everybody. Take care.